Hi! Welcome to Space Couch. I unmuted my mic so you can hear my wonderful voice. What is going on? How are you? We're back after a little bit of a break. Uh, you know, it's a weird time, and I'm happy you are able to join us here from your home, or if you're in Florida, perhaps you're streaming this on the beach. No comment. Uh, let us get into this now because our guest today is so insanely talented and prolific. We're going to need as much show as we can. So before we get to that, we are going to do a little sponsor spot. Our sponsor this week is incredible. I am so happy to have them on board this show. It's an amazing sponsor. It's Tiger Squawk Records. Check them out at facebook.com/Tiger Squawk Records with the new Isserly Agoraphobic Sweetheart. That's amazing. Really creepy. The new Industrial Galaxy in Flames. Chaos Gods of Warhammer 40k songs. Sugar Plum Suicide's new single Battle Ready. That's amazing. New episode of Outer Bat Super Chat. That's me and Ryan Clark. And Industrial Nerds. That's me and Steven from Club Ovator. And the new science fiction is pre-ordering now. That's amazing. Gasoline Invertebrate. The Kickstarter is on now. It's amazing. Check it out. Gossicles and Space Couch live next week for Dark Side of the Con online. We do not have the details of that yet, but Space Couch will be at the same time and same channel. I'm not 100% sure how we're going to do the Gossicles live. It'll be very stripped down, meaning just me and some action figures in this time of social distancing. So, everybody, let me just do one little life systems check here, because space is always trying to kill you, and we got to be on the razor's edge of mortality, as I like to say. Speaking of cutting edge, our guest today, I don't even know where to start. She's been a podcast host, been nice enough to have me on. Many monikers of wonderful industrial music output, to say nothing of a real pillar of the DJ scene here in Boston. I could not be more excited to talk to this person. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, DJ SAWTOOTH. What is up?
Hi, everybody.
Hey! Oh, science fiction and the vein collector himself, Dan Gunther, already in the chat room. Let's get into it. How are you? Thank you for beaming your signal from your home into space in this wonderful.
You're the only smart person. You left the planet before all this madness started happening.
I was into social distancing before it was cool. No, I mean, I just thought
can't get much more socially distant than space.
Like just me and the dog, and occasionally my fiance. Oh, Nevada Hardware in the room, says SAWTOOTH. Hell yeah.
Hi, Doug.
Yeah, it's well, we do have a terrestrial base in Boston, Massachusetts, and after moving from my former terrestrial base from Chicago to Boston, you were one of the first people I met in this wonderful scene, DJing that crazy Humans of Boston show we did, and
what a good show that was.
That was great, and that was 2 or so years ago, and I'm still catching up on your back catalog. You are so insanely prolific. Brian LeGault in the room. Let's start at the top. Boston's at the Boston town. I'm finding out.
Evil Dr. No has arrived.
Let's start at the top.
Dr. Go, my bad.
Meaning latest. Well, Dr. Well, Dr. Go has to stay in these COVID-19 times. New Sawtooth album, Hostile Design, is out now. Lord of mercy. Let's start there. From a satellite view, pardon the pun, is there any sort of unifying feeling or gestalt, as we like to say on this show, of Hostile Design, or are these sort of a collection of slices of your life? Uh,
There is kind of like a yeah, there is kind of a through line through it, and like I can actually trace that back to the album, like the full length that I did before that, with the incredibly colorful name "Hand Jobs for Putin."
so
I know you don't like to get political on here,
we can get
but I
political.
did this. I did that one after after Orange 45's election,
Mm.
and I was just
I know.
incredibly angry during this period of my
Okay.
life, and that political anger kind of colored the songs.
Mm.
And now in 2020, like after all the absolute chaos
Hmm.
and furor that's been going on, like the songs on Hostile Design are still kind of angry, but also less sort of focused in one direction and more just like in a kind of sort of concept of societal collapse more
Mm.
than anything. And these songs were all finished like before 2020,
Mm.
so it's a complete coincidence
Mm.
that society's actually collapsing when this came out.
the
And
I
like,
want to
oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I want to caveat real quick. I don't have the Rona, but I have been sick for a while, and it
Oh
manifests
no.
itself. If I laugh really hard, I'm going to start coughing. I'll try to mute myself out, but I may not be able to do it. Big time kill in the chat room,
Hi,
says
Adam.
Sawtooth Lightning Bolt video game emoticon. But back to you. Yeah, it does. Though that I love that description. The albums really do sort of have that feel, and even with Nazi Scalps, another Sawtooth release. There was such an anger
Hmm.
after, because you say Orange 45 got elected, and now we've internalized it a bit with this collapse, and the album does have some dystopian sort of uh, feel to me, like remove blood, like we're
Hmm.
all turning into like these meat bags. Um, but
Funny thing about that song, there's actually like a sample in there from an audiobook an audiobook recording on the novelization of the Star Trek episode where the Borg is introduced.
really,
Yeah,
God, I forget the name of that episode.
I forget the name of it too.
Yeah, it's a
I
Q
really should
one.
remember it because it's one of the best episodes ever.
Yeah, it's like how Q you or something. It's a little Q pun. But somebody will post that in the chat room. Janine Gribble says we're playing Allergy or Rona here whenever it's necessary to be out.
Hmm.
Um, Love that. With all this album talk, let's cut to a clip of the album. This will be Devoured featuring Todd of Down City Armory. So I know you can't hear the audio. We'll cut back and cue who. Oh, that vocoder is so good. Cannibal Law. Yeah, the beat on the chorus here is pretty gnarly. Oh no! Dan said we have no audio on the
Uh-oh.
on my clips. Let's do this. Will not be. I'm gonna do one thing here, and then we'll encourage audience members to check it out for they themselves. But if I
Dead rat in front of the store. Oh,
and then we do that.
dead rat in front of the store. A warning. A dead rat across from the church. Are they following me? Are they following me?
Thank you for allowing me.
Are they following me to bury me? Are they following? Self-cannibalize. I eat myself to stay alive. Self-cannibalize. Just to survive. Just to survive. Just to survive. Self-cannibalize. Just you.
Oh, it's noise box. And we're back. Thank you for allowing us to call a bit of an audible there and fix our audio on the fly. I want to give a shout out to friend of the show, Dre of Noisebox. What's up, Noisebox? What's up, man? So we just heard Devoured. That is a badass track.
Thank you.
That it's got what I want to call almost like a hip hop element to it. Like I imagine a bunch of like assassins getting ready like to go out on a mission when I hear that track. Grasp Logic in the room.
See, the hip hop comparison is interesting because, like, when I came up with the sort of production for this song specifically, I was like, the thing that I had on my mind, I was trying to just sort of do a makeshift cyanotic song.
Oh, nice.
Hence all the glitchiness in it. And then Todd came along with his very ogre reminiscent vocals, and now everyone just compares it to Skinny Puppy.
Oh,
Which, okay, I'll take that.
very cool. Well, I know Mr. Payne, former guest of the show, is no stranger to hip hop. So I'm happy that I'll say it worked out because that's me calling myself a hero. But I love that they came together as good as it did.
I do love a good hippie hop though.
Did so a lot of these are with friends, colleagues, or otherwise collaborations. How did some of these collaborations come together?
Uh, Complete accident,
Okay.
pretty much. Like that was sort of another through line for this album because for the longest time I wanted more than anything to do like, like Quincy Jones kind of album or something
nice.
like that, where like I handle the production and arrangements and everything, but every single track has a guest vocalist on it. I didn't quite pull it off for this one, but like, most of them have guest vocals on them. And it was literally just, I put out just a call on like Facebook being like, hey, who wants to,
Nice.
anyone want to do guest vocals for an album I'm working on? And X amount of people just responded, except for Devoured. Like I specifically had Todd in mind for that one.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
have
and he fucking knocked it out of the park.
that ogre presence. Yeah, he certainly did. Let's do this before I forget. It's still on the books, but you can see not only Todd do live vocals for Down City Armory, but our guest today will be DJing a show in Providence on May 23rd, maybe.
Ooh, I hope so.
Right. It's. I mean, take it all with a grain of salt because we're all figuring it out daily. But I'll be doing gasoline with Deftly, friend and current guest in the chat room. Big Time Kill will be headlining along with Decent News. So check that out, maybe.
Yeah, I legit hope that show still goes on in some way or some shape or form because that's the show I'd been looking forward to just ever since that got announced.
I was I was talking with Mr. Flash of Decent News and was very happy he allowed me to do that with Gasoline. And then I was over the moon when it was announced that the mighty Sawtooth would be DJing that. Did when you were working on this particular release on Hostile Design, did anything come together particularly fast, or on the other side, just put up a major fight?
I mean, it kind of varied. Some tracks were easier to put together than others. Like, for the most part, like the only thing that was kind of just sort of making the process drag its feet was, some of the, like, there were, like, as I originally intended, every track was supposed to have guest vocals, but that just didn't end up coming to pass because people who like had initially agreed to be like, I want to add guest vocals to this song. They just took way too long. And this is actually an album that I started working on back in like 2018. And like I ended up sitting on it for so long that at some point, like in early 2020, I just sort of thought to myself, what am I doing? I have enough songs on here that I could put a new thing out. I haven't put out a full length since 2017. I should move forward with this. As much as I, still wanted to keep to my original plan of, a guest vocalist on every track, like I have to move forward.
I 100% agree. Well, you are no stranger to output. You are certainly prolific, but yeah, I definitely I feel you on that. Where it's like, well, this could be. I could have something or all of nothing, like if you just sit on my hard drive in perpetuity. And I'm so glad you put it out because it is a great album. Where do people pick this up?
Hostile Design is you can pick it up on my Bandcamp page. That's djsawtooth.bandcamp.com. And I believe it's on all of the major streaming services right now, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Music, and all that. I mean, it's there if you're one of those weirdos that uses Deezer. Well, there's going to be someone in the chat who uses Deezer, and I apologize.
Well, wherever you pick it up, please do so. DJ Sawtooth.
If you do get the Bandcamp version, there are 3 exclusive remixes on there that aren't available on Spotify or any of the streaming services. So I highly recommend you go for the Bandcamp version above all else.
Space Couch now officially endorses the Bandcamp version. It's great. She hasn't gotten her stimulus check yet, so please pick up that album. Space Couch fully endorses this product and or service. It is a service. It makes you feel good in your heart. You, speaking of online services, released this by way of a listening party, which was cool. How was that experience for you?
Interesting, to say the least. Because, like, I mean, so many of my DJ contemporaries have taken to, like, streaming on Twitch and all that sort of stuff. I still haven't really figured that out myself, just because the process is so nebulous and foreign to me. But like, I worked with my friend Ian, who's also a DJ by the name of DJ Dehumanate. He spins in Maine a lot.
Okay.
Like he and like a bunch of other Maine-centric people set up just like a Facebook group called Pandemic Presents. And they've basically just been, just sort of setting up all these events to be streamed over on Zoom. And it's like, DJ events and all that sort of stuff. I think they did like The Cure tribute night a while ago. And just out of I joined their group just to sort of keep up to date.
Right.
And if they were looking for any DJs, and just out of the blue, the week before I'd planned to release it, I thought I'd just get in touch with Ian and go, would it be possible to just sort of stream the album? And it just sort of took off from there, and I hadn't expected it to, but I mean, I think it worked out really well.
That was
Lots
cool.
of people checked it out. You were there. A lot of my friends were there. A lot of the people who contributed to the album were there, and it was just kind of generally a good time
Cool.
and some semblance, and just some semblance of normalcy.
Right. Yeah, it is. Uh, I am personally now. Well, I mean, I've been doing Space Couch for a few years, but normalizing that Zoom meetings are now kind of how we're hanging out as a
Mm.
society. So, thanks again for throwing that
Mm.
online party. Not only did I get to listen to great music, but it felt like I was going out in a weird way. So,
Mm.
good times and great
Mhm.
soundtrack. And so check out Hostile Design. Want to jump to something also new and exciting because new and exciting is sort of your brand. It seems like there
Yeah.
is. I dig it. Well, because you have the fairly new Fatigue, the other project, um, which also appears on Hostile Design.
Mhm.
And so tell us about fatigue and any um, differences or cross pollination or not with Sawtooth.
Fatigue is a project that I basically started near the tail end of last year that I'm using as an outlet for that I'm basically using as an outlet for any vocal driven
Mm.
stuff that I put out. Because I've tried doing that with Sawtooth in the past and I've never really been totally satisfied with
Mm.
it. And it's also just a means of exploring other less industrial avenues because like where Sawtooth is more like industrial glitch, dark techno inspired and all that sort of thing. Fatigue has been increasingly headed in a more dark synth pop, dark
Mm.
wavy kind of direction with, just influences from all over the place because I can't help not being influenced by just random shit.
Right? Yeah, everything creeps in. Um, I will cut to a clip of this in a second. I gotta fix it with. I tried to get fancy for this episode and ended up biting me. Hold on, just 1 second. So from the top, here is the latest from Fatigue. So this is Quiet Desolation. Love it. Kind of a Pet Shop Boys meets Creepy Nursery Rhyme vibe to this. Mm. I dig it. No. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I can definitely hear both of those. But just influence. It's got its own thing. I hear some glitch going on in it. And you can hold a note. Like, is there anything you can't do? I can't hold a note. So
There,
that
there's a lot of processing that goes on
yeah, I do that too. But
to
that's
make it
okay.
sound like I can hold a note.
Well, that's what electronic music affords us.
Mhm.
So we have fatigue. What might we expect from that moniker, or is that still because you've been kind of piecemeal releasing singles for fatigue? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much just putting stuff out just as it comes to me. Because Fatigue takes a little bit longer to produce sometimes,
Mm.
just because like I'm not just creating, instrumental pieces like I often do with Sawtooth. Now I just have to sit down and go, oh God, I actually have to sing now,
Mm. Yeah.
and not only do the actual singing, but convince myself, I can do this. I can actually sing this thing, sort of thing like that.
Yeah, yeah, I know how that goes. Like
Yeah.
I'll export the whole track out and then go to like singing time, and then be like, maybe I'll take out the garbage first. Like just really, really find ways to put it off. Nick Jones of Digital Gnosis in the chat room. We have full Jones for this episode. Both Jones brothers.
Christopher Brown just popped in. He contributed to Hostile Design.
Oh, awesome. Christopher, thank you so much for showing up on this episode. If you want to let us know anything about your experience contributing to Hostile Design, please let us know in the chat room. You spearheaded a Prodigy cover album.
That's right.
And I got to see your version of Minefields live at a friend of the show, also Gossical Deathly Deeds house for one of his noise parties. The Prodigy cover was at least partly prompted by the death of Mr. Flint, but
Right.
What prompted the decision to do this tribute compilation, and how did you find the experience of sort of crafting and compiling this thing?
I mean, this is going to sound really just sort of mundane and petty, but honestly, the compilation album, Jilted Generations, just came out because, as far as I was aware, no one else would. And like after Keith Flint's death, and like the Prodigy was just such a huge influence and inspiration to a lot of, my songwriting and stuff like that. I just thought, oh my God, like we have to, pay tribute to him somehow. But I didn't want to be the person to do it because the year before I had, put together another charity compilation called Effigies, which was just a spur of the moment tribute to With Sympathy by Ministry, which we literally just decided to do it because that's the album that they hate that Al Jorgensen hates the most, and we kind of like it.
Yeah. I am definitely agreeing with that. Like it's far and away my my favorite Ministry album. But like he's got that shirt that says like "We'll sign With Sympathy" for $5,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think he's actually been doing that in like the more recent years. People have actually been taking him up on it.
Well,
and I think he's been donating the money to like local Chicago charities, and good on him for that.
Good on him for that. Well,
but like I did that, I put that together,
right.
And that's, as you can imagine, a lot of work to do. And it took up a lot of my time and a lot of my focus. So I thought, okay, I'm just not going to do that this year. And then Keith Flint, unfortunately, passed away. And after a while, I just sort of thought to myself, well, as far as I'm aware, nobody else is doing this. So I guess I might as well just sort of take the lead on that. And it got like an even bigger response than Effigies did, and more, a more wide variety of people contributing to it.
Yeah.
And so it all just sort of worked out, and we ended up raising like a little over $200 that we contributed to the National Suicide Lifeline.
Yeah, I know the aforementioned Big Time Kill is on that.
They also contributed to Effigies as well.
Oh, well, big ups to them, and big ups to you for doing that. Where do we find that?
That is on another Bandcamp site that I'm hosting, the Combustible Designs Bandcamp, which is pretty much just a label that I originally used for like occasional graphic design that I've done. But then I set that up to host the two compilations because I thought that this would be weird if I hosted it on my Sawtooth page. But go check out combustibledesigns.bandcamp.com. Both Jilted Generations and Effigies are hosted there, and we will still be donating any monetary proceeds that we get from either of those to their respective charities.
That is amazing. So Combustible Design started as a graphic design thing, and you sort of morphed that into, if that's the right word to use.
Yeah, it's just sort of the catch-all kind of imprint name that I've been using. Like I list that as the label for both Sawtooth and Fatigue releases when I put them on streaming services. There's no actual label though.
Well, who knows what that's like? But
yep.
Very cool, very cool. And where does the Effigies charity money go?
The money for monetary gains for effigies are donated to I forget the name of the charity. I'd have to look it
Okay.
up, but it's a charity that like just sort of like a music for youth charity.
That's awesome. I love that. So,
Yeah.
combustibledesigns.bandcamp.com.
Let me actually just look that up real
Sure
quick
thing.
on
After you go to the hostile, is that
yeah,
djsawtooth.bandcamp.com for hostile designs?
yeah. Sawtooth.bandcamp.com is understandably taken.
Okay, there's a few
Yeah.
sawteeth in the world. Uh,
For the
fatigue.
longest time, like I was being mistaken by bands in town for this folk group out of Oklahoma
Oh no.
that was also called Sawtooth.
Yeah,
Just real quick, the effigies, all proceeds generated from the purchase of this compilation will be donated to education through music.
that's amazing. That's that's so cool. I know you're on the this seems so far in the rearview mirror, but cosmically this just happened. The Australian wildfires
Hmm.
tragedy. You were on a compilation for that, yeah?
That's right. Our friend Christopher actually helped put the thing together.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So
That
you
was the no wait. Actually, my other friend Patrick is like the ringleader of it. Patrick
okay?
S. Berry of Smell and Bears for Years and some other Boston bands.
Very cool, very cool. You are just a hey, hey, Fires is in the chat room, says it's Latin, sawteeth. If I am saying that right. I throw sorry if I fucked up your Latin joke.
It's Leviosa.
The is this the same Patrick? Now that I'm sorry, I'm piecing together the Sawtooth verse. Is this the same Patrick from Jukebox Zeros?
That is indeed the same Patrick from
Fantastic.
that
Let
I co-host the podcast Jukebox Zeros with.
so when you're not just shooting like darkness bolts of music out of your eyes, you're doing a really great podcast. I've listened. I mean, track this back to narcissism, but I listened to our episode at least twice because I had so much fun reviewing
Yeah,
the.
that was a great episode. Thanks. Like you were great on it.
Oh well, I mean, it's I don't get out much. I'm kind of suited to this whole COVID situation, but it was great to meet Patrick and hang out with let's say priorly existing friends, Adam and Lil. It's the well, tell us about Jukebox Zeros. Is it the Bad Album podcast?
Something like that. Like I pitch it as a bad album podcast, but I feel like, contextually it's a little more complicated than that. On Jukebox Zeros, Patrick and I basically pick an album from history that's either infamous or has like a reputation of being one of the worst albums of all time, just from a historical sort of
Okay.
standpoint, or sometimes just like what we consider like, or what's been decided as the worst album in a band's catalog.
Okay.
We just sort of track by track review it and decide for ourselves whether it's deserving of that label of worst of all time. And we've listened to some stinkers, but also some really, really some surprisingly good ones.
Okay.
Like we did an episode on With Sympathy, and
Mm.
like I ended up liking it more than I thought I would.
Wow. Okay.
One of our more recent episodes on Raoul and the Kings of Spain by Tears for Fears, which is which is one of the albums they did without Kurt Smith. Like we ended up really liking that one, which we weren't expecting.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. It's it's these historically bad albums, and you're giving them a fair shake. Now
Yeah.
the Christmas in the Stars album that we did is bananas.
For full context, I had Brian and Adam from Big Time Kill on as guests for the 1980s Star Wars Christmas album, Christmas in the Stars.
It's so funny. Like I just your brain sort of remembers weird stuff. Like I will be like just working on something or looking out a window or something, and then I'll have Patrick in my head, as Anthony Daniels going, "This is how you sing. I am singing now." So I just had a blast. Check out all the episodes of Jukebox Zeros. We find that anywhere podcasts are found, I imagine.
Yep. It's on
Cool.
Spotify. It's on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, the whole lot.
Very cool. Uh, do you have like a Mount Rushmore of bad albums? Like, is there like a Churl 2 The Room bad album collection?
By that, do you mean like the genuinely worst ones or like
Either one.
the, worst ones that I ended up
Right.
liking?
Well, give me one that's like you think is like legit bad, and one that's sort of held up as bad, but you think actually has a lot of merit to it.
Well, that Tears for Fears album, as I mentioned, with Sympathy, as I also mentioned.
Pretty cool.
See, for that, I'd actually have to look back in like our archives to actually see some of the ones that we've done. We did an episode on. This might surprise some people. I didn't hate Saint Anger.
Okay.
I didn't hate Saint Anger as much as the rest of the world does.
Okay. Yes. Good call. That is definitely like a societally, if you will, viewed upon as a low point. But
yeah, Saint Anger was one. We ended up also liking "Come" by Prince, which is also one that is not like held highly in regard. Why Can't Tori Read?
Oh yeah,
which was Tori Amos's ill-conceived '80s synth pop group.
Totally.
That actually ended up being really good.
No, I will confess, Big Picture is a bop. Very very good call on Why Can't Tori Read. So check out all these surprises and more on Jukebox Zero, and that's part of something of like a network, yeah.
Yeah, it's part of like just sort of like a little collective of podcasts that I do with just a bunch of friends that I have called the Zero Science Network. Its website is www.zero-science.com. Jukebox Zeros is there, and like a whole bunch of other mostly music related podcasts, but we've been trying to branch out into some other stuff more and more.
Oh yeah, like what?
More recently, our friend Christopher and another mutual friend of the podcast, Scott Kurland, who's hosts his own podcast called Writer's Bagel Basket. They began a podcast out of their mutual love of Family Matters, where they're basically reviewing every single appearance that Steve Urkel makes outside of Family Matters.
That's amazing.
It's called Where in the World is Stephen Q. Urkel?
Excuse me, I had to mute out a laugh cough there, but what an amazing premise for a show. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, we've also sort of started this little miniature project called Pandemic Casts, which is, we're sort of pitching it as a show in its own right, but basically each episode is a one-off podcast, a single episode on just random shit that we're doing to keep ourselves busy while we're stuck in quarantine.
Wow.
Like I did an episode a while back with yet another podcast host, my friend Heather Mack, one of the hosts of Make It Stop, another music podcast, where we basically try to review the Cats movie musical from 2019.
Okay.
You are
a glutton for musical punishment.
Yeah. The title of it is "Mankind Has Strayed from the Path of Light."
And where do we find all these again?
www.zero-science.com is our main hub, but all these podcasts are readily available on like Spotify, Apple Music, and all the rest of the podcast places.
I love it. Speaking of all that music, let's do the DJ part of DJ Sawtooth. You have been DJing for a while now with residencies at Plague in Portland, Maine, and Resurrection in Manchester, New Hampshire. What drew you to DJing initially?
I credit all of that to my brother Glenn, who also DJs, not as occasionally, not as frequently as I do, under the moniker DJ Badaxe.
Nice.
But like I learned everything from him about DJing because he sorry, I just read what Adra wrote about the
Yeah.
butthole cut.
Well,
No, we did not see the butthole cut
well,
of cats.
coming on a future episode, we'll get that sweet butthole cut.
But basically, like at one point, like he was just sort of playing with it wasn't virtual DJ, it was the software that came like before virtual DJ.
Okay.
I forget what it was called. He was playing with it, like learning how to DJ trance music, which is more his wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that and thought that looks like a lot of fun, and just sort of asked him to teach me about it. And
Wow, okay.
I just sort of learned from that using his stuff. And then, like, as time went by, because when I like, just for more context, when I was maybe like middle school aged, like 13, 14, 15, right, I was on the fast track to getting into industrial music like that early.
Oh, wow, okay.
And then nu metal happened and just ruined everything.
All right.
Yes, I went through an embarrassing nu metal phase,
No judgment.
which some friends from high school sort of lifted me out of by putting me on the fast track to a maybe, comparatively also snotty hipster indie rock phase.
Okay.
Then sometime in high school was when not high school. Sometime in college was when I gradually started to shift back into industrial music because not only was I rediscovering like all the bands that got me into industrial music, like Nine Inch Nails, Rammstein, right, and like all these other sort of surface level groups. But that was also the time when I was starting to discover like, the progenitors like Skinny Puppy and Thrill Kill Cult and all that sort of stuff.
Very cool.
So that got me interested back into it. Then like maybe several years later, my brother's girlfriend at the time, now wife, Puck, took me to my very first goth club night, a night that went on in Lowell, Massachusetts called Jaded. And I heard all the industrial music that was playing there, and it was revelatory to me because that was the first time I'd even thought like you could DJ this stuff in a club setting. And that just sort of put me on the fast track to like, I need to get more of this. I need to learn how to, do it for myself. I need to get in and start doing it. And that's pretty much put me on the fast. I was around 2013 and I've been just sort of,
Very cool. Yeah, that was, I just want to touch on something you said because I had a very similar experience. Like, in high school or for whatever, for me, like industrial music was like me and like maybe two other dudes. Like it really lived inside my skull. And then when I heard about clubs that like played industrial music, like you can DJ that, like I walked in to the underage night at the Cardinal in Madison, Wisconsin, and heard X Marks the Pedwalk's Facer, which I didn't think like just anybody else had heard, but it's being DJ'd in a real dance place, and like my mind melted. I just wanted to sort of relive that the experience of like seeing industrial music DJ'd for the first time.
Yeah, jumping off of that, like it almost certainly helped that like I was finally starting to meet people that I could bounce this like of industrial music off of, because I didn't even have one other person.
Oh, really?
During that first time. Like I was pretty much just alone in listen. Like I maybe had one friend who heard like a KMFDM song, but that was about it.
Yeah, like people like KMFDM was like you'd heard the name before, and like Nine Inch Nails was on the radio, but I don't know how much that counts, like
right.
And to not
Ministry
only,
didn't really sound like industrial anymore.
Good call. And when you find that not only the music but the community, that's a very good call.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you're sort of like killing it on the DJ front, like all over the place here in Boston and New England at large, and Massachusetts certainly. Uh, excuse me. Does the DJing part inform the band, I'll say, of Sawtooth?
Oh, absolutely.
How's that?
Like I consider myself incredibly privileged that not only, did I start DJing in a place with so many great and lovely, just wonderful people to just sort of learn from and just sort of interact with, but also such a wide variety of styles too.
Mm.
Because I just know that if I was in, some scene where, it's all the traditional stuff, I wouldn't have heard any of the stuff that like, the likes of, Devil's Advocate or Brian L. or like K-Spec would have played or anything like that. Any of the more sort of off the beaten path stuff.
Okay. So back to the idea of like the DJ community.
Yeah.
Okay. Big ups to Brian L., Devil's Advocate, K-Spec.
Yeah. And I always pay like very close attention to like what everyone else is, like what everyone else in the New England scene is playing, just because like when that time comes when I discover, some new track that's just amazing, and I found it through like, a DJ Pet set or something like that. And it's just such a great feeling.
Yeah, very cool. Big ups to DJ Pet. I I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here because I'm curious. Like in the in DJ world, what have you found anything that we should know about?
In the kingdom of DJ Shire.
In the kingdom of DJ Shire, are you liking anything right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
You did kind of put me on the spot.
I did. I'm sorry about that.
I didn't have an answer for
I
this
know.
off the top
I
of
got
my
excited talking about industrial music.
head. Right now, like I'm just trying to remember the last stuff I bought on Bandcamp. The last like really big Bandcamp binge I went on, I got some really good stuff from like Black Nail Cabaret,
nice.
Riz Fulber. Once again, our friend Christopher Brown's project, The Difference Engine, put out a really good EP of industrial music not long ago.
Good.
So I've still been
stuff.
digging on that.
Well, speaking of, then thank you for that. I will have to check that out. I just sort of slipped that question in there, but we've been doing a lot of local talk, and you are certainly no stranger to remixing some. I'll say the word local, but they're really sort of national type acts with Big Time Kill, the Morris Black Powerhouse, with these insane remixes of like Kendrick Lamar and Korn. We played your remix of Deathly a few episodes back. That was great.
Thank you for that.
Not a problem. You're like a remix machine. Do you have any sort of like philosophy when you're asked for, like, when you're like, all right, I'm Sawtooth, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to crack this remix kit open. What's your mindset or like philosophy, if I can use that word?
My philosophy is I don't really have a philosophy,
Okay,
to be perfectly honest.
That's a perfectly valid answer.
Like I just think of a song that I want, to play around with, and then I see how that goes. Like I have so many, like not like, whenever someone asks me to like remix a track of theirs, obviously you got to finish that.
Right.
But I have so many like unofficial stuff that is just sort of laying fallow in, in my FL Studio drive and all that sort of stuff, just because I started working on it and then thought, you know what, this isn't really going in an interesting place. But, that's still something you just got to get out of your system. Because, like, that just sort of, the whole thing just sort of ties into the being prolific sort of stuff is, I think, the only way to stay, to just sort of keep on your toes as a musician is to never stop, working on that sort of stuff and challenging yourself and just making shit, even if it's just sort of half-hearted stuff that you never come back to.
So so you have like those pieces lying around. Like here's like a drum loop or something.
Yeah,
That,
pretty much.
okay, awesome. Well, that's great. Like, I mean, we've touched on it a couple times, but like your internal motor is pretty full throttle from what I can tell. So it's
Mm.
just is that your MO? Just like I have 15 minutes, before I have to walk the dog or whatever. They just like let's just crank out a few like sort of Lego pieces we can put into this remix later.
Something like that.
Okay.
Because sometimes there'll just be just like days and days where like I just don't feel any sort of drive, like just to do anything but sit around or anything like that. I've been experiencing quite a lot of that during the quarantine.
Mm.
But like when it does come, when that spark does hit me, then somehow I just managed to crank out just a ton of shit in a very short period of time.
Cool, man. I like the spark. I love that.
Mm.
Just that. Yeah, I feel that too. Where it's like, all I want to do is play horrific first-person shooters and go to bed early, or
Mm.
or I'm just wired into the matrix. Uh,
Oh yes, I unfortunately haven't been like getting a lot of music done as I had hoped that I'd be
mm,
during this quarantine. Mostly it's been like podcasts
mm.
and lots of reliving old school FPS games.
Oh, okay, great, great. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We did Heidi and I did PAX East here in Boston, and
Mm.
I am such a sucker for indie games that I'm going through all those. When I'm not doing a fair
Nice.
amount of music, check out that Gasoline Invertebrate Kickstarter and
Mm.
a bunch of other stuff coming out soon. If the festivals don't get canceled. The Do you have for all your gwillions of remixes? Do you have any that come to mind as like particularly cohesive?
Um. Hmm. Cohesive. I don't know
Okay,
because I feel like that's kind of objective.
sure.
But the one that like I keep coming back to in my mind, one of my favorite
Mm.
ones is one that I contributed to as a remix contest, not contrast contest for the synth pop group Metroland.
Nice.
That one ended up like that was a contest to just sort of contribute a remix to their EP. That ended up making the final cut.
Very cool.
And why I like that one so much is just because it's so completely different from like the stuff that I usually do, which is very beat centric. And while this one was a lot more atmospheric and ethereal with some interesting like stuff done with synthesized choirs and tribal
Oh,
percussion.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds awesome.
If you want to look that up, it's the track is called Brother by Metroland,
Okay,
and it's Sawtooth's Lush Wasteland mix.
check that out. Metroland, good stuff.
Hmm.
The So when you're not doing all this, you're doing live. Oh wait, I want to get this in, because friend of the show and mutual homegirl, Aithra says, y'all hype for Streets of Rage 4? Yes. Uh, man, speaking personally, I am going to smash open so many garbage cans with pipes and eat the delicious pies and fruits therein. But I am a Streets of Rage fan.
Of course, that's your want as a beat 'em up game
Yeah,
player.
it's pretty great.
So someone went to the effort to bake that pie and then hide it in a trash can. You'd better eat that pie.
You're just trying to be helpful. The thing I was gonna speaking of beating on things with pipes, you
Good
do
segue.
yes, you do live percussion for Hometown Heroes Transdusk. Um, what's the history of that, and how's that going?
Oh, I feel really bad because you keep asking for like the history of all these
Okay, I'm
things,
just
and all
curious.
my explanations are just so mundane and
Well,
boring.
if that's, I mean, I don't expect to be like, well, they came down in some sort of alien transdusk craft and Doctor Strange floated out with weird hand gestures, like
So there I was in Munich, surrounded
right.
by rabid anthropomorphic ferret men with
I'm
a
in.
nasty attitude.
There, well, concept album. Uh, so, I
No,
mean,
what it was literally what actually happened. My friend TS Moth, who is the head of Transdusk, the mad genius behind it, literally just made a Facebook post saying, "Hey, anyone who does percussion stuff, get at me. I'm trying to do some interesting new stuff with Transdusk." And I got at him. He asked me what I did, and I was like, I have no idea. I could like bring some tom drums over, and I got some rototoms for Christmas from my parents a while back. And he was just like, perfect, that'll do.
that's awesome. That's a great
So,
story. That's
so
a,
now I'm just aux percussion and transdusk.
that's amazing. So, uh, did you, um, you had those tom drums beforehand? Were you, do you have like a history as a drummer, or were you just picking it up?
Yeah, those were part of a drum kit that I have.
Okay.
Cause yeah, I do play like set drum in like a couple of local bands around Massachusetts.
Oh,
None
awesome.
of none of which are industrial bands, but I'm working on trying to like expand out into that a little bit more.
Very cool. That's, I mean, yeah, it's great you're finally doing something. I'm kidding. You're a machine. The so how long you been playing drums?
Since high school,
Okay.
pretty much.
Oh, did you do the high school drummer thing where it's like you're in 18 different bands?
I tried to, but no one was biting.
It's funny. Well, very cool. How are you finding the live experience for Transdusk?
Oh, it's great. It's just exhilarating
Very cool.
so much to play like that specific style. Because prior to like playing with prior to playing with Transdusk, I've primarily just done set drum for very sort of, just very standard sort of rock group ensemble sort of things
Hmm.
like that. And actually getting to play not just in an industrial group, but such a, just completely different style of playing drums than like playing set, because my basic setup is I have three tom drums, a floor tom, a high tom, and a low tom, all just sort of arranged in a semicircle around me,
Hmm.
and my rototoms right at the front. And I basically play them in a similar manner to like if you've ever seen like those gigantic taiko drums
Yeah, yeah.
from Japan or something like that,
Very cool. Very cool. I
or
mean,
Donkey Konga.
majestic Japanese live theater or Donkey Konga. The I'm assuming there's not a Transdusk live set on the books in these shelter-in-place times, but
There isn't. Hopefully, if all goes well, Transdusk will be playing like. Hopefully, if all goes well, Transdusk is hoping to eventually play a really big sort of show in Salem,
oh, nice.
Massachusetts. Like, there's just like a big, just sort of hootenanny of metal bands that's been happening
Oh,
yearly
awesome.
that Transdusk is always a part of, and this year it's going to be happening in Salem. And I believe TS is going to be doing an acoustic set of Transdusk tunes on his
Look
own,
at that.
streamed through Twitch.
Very
So
cool.
I definitely check that out. I'm still a little bit lax on the details,
We'll figure
but
that out.
that should hopefully be really rad.
Big ups to the Yellow King of Providence. He puts the goth in Shoggoth. What's up to Matt Hawks, who says, enjoyed the Transdusk show and they opened for Osico or Osiso or I can
Oh
never.
yeah, that was a very fun show as well.
Good stuff. Good stuff. The so let's do this. This is sort of a new concept question here on Space Couch.
Ooh,
Build the Sawtooth Voltron for me. Like I'll need the four components or like the tenants if you want of Sawtooth as like the legs and arms, and then I'll need like the fifth central piece for the Black Lion head.
ooh, I have no idea what this question means.
So like for example, like okay,
Like just all the stuff that sort of influences
Yeah,
just like
we could
my
go
own thought
influences.
process.
Yeah, or like is like one leg Fruity Loops, and then like the other leg is like DJ culture, or and then with sort of the synthesis, not electronic synthesis, but combining these elements together as
Mm,
Sawtooth the Head, something like that, or influences if you want.
interesting. Um, Going by that, then I'm gonna say the left leg is goth industrial music.
Okay.
The right leg is podcasts.
Okay.
The left arm is um, just music in general.
All right.
Not necessarily like playing music or making it, just listening to it and talking about it and reading about it and all that sort of
love
stuff.
that. Yeah.
Right arm is satire, just because that's always like satire and snark and anarchic sort of sensibilities have always sort of colored my own sort of sensibilities. And the head is my head. Because, of course, it's my head.
I love it. I love it. See, it's the remix. The head
I
is
have
my
no
head.
idea if I did this correctly or
You
not.
nailed it. You nailed it. All the robeasts fall before your mighty Sawtooth-tron space sword. I love it. We are on a rogue flight path out here. God damn it, I forgot to say the tagline. Call the spaceships to Davenport. Prepare for Divanarchy and interface with a couch in space. There, I said it. We are on a rogue flight path out here in the cosmos, and I'm going to
Does
bring...
excitement abound?
Excitement is abounding all over the place here at Space Camp. The flying divan we pilot through the void is coming back into the station. So do you have any final thoughts here on this wonderful Space Couch episode?
I guess just, everyone be safe, be well, and don't do anything stupid.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Check out DJSawtooth.bandcamp.com, fatiguema.bandcamp.com, combustibledesigns.bandcamp.com, Jukebox Zeros, all that stuff. If you throw a pebble into the industrial lake, you will hit some Sawtooth thing just by virtue of math. This has been an amazing episode. Thank you so much. This is Brian.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, no,
this was a lot of fun.
I was really happy when you applied in the affirmative to this episode. Brian for Sawtooth for Space Couch. Out. Okay, we are at the ending credits. So we can talk over these. Man, yeah, as long as we're sheltering in place, and then we have devices
totally.
virtually connect.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me on this. This was a lot of fun.